Hello, everyone. Hope you all had a great weekend. Welcome to We Boutta Get Deep with Robert B. Foster. I know I'm wearing my Shut Up and Grind shirt today. That show is tomorrow. But anyway, I wanted to wear it for today. So this conversation today, we're going to be discussing transgender in sports. And once again, I had 5 spots open for panelists. I had 5 panelists sign up. I gave the topic and none of them showed up. So I was like, this just shows you how afraid people are of having tough conversations. But I really don't think this one's as tough as everyone thinks it is. So let me just get the live feed up here. So actually, I can do that while I play the intro. So let me introduce myself. I started doing workshops and doing groups where I'm getting up in front of others, like outside of the gym setting, and talking about resilience and perseverance and goal setting and vision and taking action. You should know what 1 hour of your time is worth. You should know the value that you bring to the marketplace. You know what your passion is. Starts with clarity of vision. If you don't have the clarity of vision, whatever next thing you get, you're not going to see it through because you don't have the clarity of vision. So the point of my pain was being told you will never run or jump again. And all that stuff, I was like, you know what? Like, I want to be able to take this even bigger. If you know why you do what you do, you have to know how to charge for what you do. That's how you're going to change your life, and that's how you're going to leave a legacy for your children and your family. You got to know your worth. Boom, and we are back. So we got a couple people on right now. Make sure you like this video, share this video so we can get the word out about how we can have difficult, quote unquote, difficult conversations, but in a nice, rational, well thought out way. So as we broach this topic today about transgenders in sports, a lot of people get really hot under the collar when talking about, these types of subjects. But it's not about emotion, it's about rationale. Right? So we're going to take a rational look at people's opinions. We're going to look at the facts of what different sports organizations are doing to allow inclusion. And if people have comments, feel free to comment. If anybody wants to get bold and join me live, I'll send you the link and you can come on live and share your thoughts. But if anyone has watched this show, I really don't get into a slugfest with people on here. It's about state your piece, state why your piece is your piece. I will state my piece, and then we can discuss each other's pieces. Like it's that simple. It's debate 101. So there's no reason to get your emotions all in the tizzy over the topic. Like there's no reason for that. I know some people thrive on that, but that ain't the show. So before I get into my thoughts, I'm actually going to share the screen. Oh, Comstock's down for going live. All right, let me go over where are we? New window. All right, so I posted the preview to this episode on Facebook yesterday, and I got a lot of responses. So if you guys can see this, just put yes in the comment that you can see my screen before I start talking and you guys can't see anything. So anybody give me a yes? Okay, looks like we're good. All right, so the question, if a biological man transitions to a woman, I mean, we can look at it the other way as well, but we're going to start with this one. Transition to a woman, should they be allowed to compete in biological women's sports? And I got 40 comments. So let's take a second and go through the comments. There's a lot of no, absolutely no, nada. Deborah says, no, it's only setting biological women back, impossible to compete. As the track and field young female athlete from Connecticut, that was actually on my list to tackle anyway. And Michaela said, yeah, we see this at the New England Championships. These girls never had a chance. Missed opportunities for college scholarships. Jennifer has so much to say on the topic. Here's me pimping the show, bring the energy to the show. You never hear of biological women transition to men trying to compete against men. It does happen. It's just not as high profile of a case. Weird, huh? Wonder why. Michaela says absolutely not. Why is this even a question? What have we become? Hell no. Virginia May says no. Jess says transphobia. This has nothing to do with transphobia. No one's afraid of anything. We're talking about the practicality of it and the fairness of it. There's no hate here. I don't do hate. So after a certain amount of time after transitioning, yes. No, I feel a separate league should be developed to allow the competing of transgender. Oh, I'm over here clicking on stuff. We got a not, we got a hells to the no, we got a no, add a third division. This was about taking hormones. Trey-Ann's got popcorn, just they're here for the comments, apparently. We have a hard no. 10% of the population will say yes, control the 90% of the population that says no. Is Jennifer, we'll bring her on and she can share her thoughts. She's like, no, when you make a choice to change, not saying it's easy, that choice will come with some repercussions, consequences. And then she's talking about the New Zealand Olympic weightlifter, which that's on my topic to discuss also. All right, so before let me stop the screen share. All right, so before I dive into my thoughts, so my thoughts are broken up into three different categories. So you have youth sports, you have collegiate / professional sports, and that includes the Olympics. And then you have recreational sports. So if you look at the three of them, because there's different levels. So in youth sports, the divide between boys and girls is actually not as great until puberty kicks in. So once puberty kicks in, that's where the bodies start to change, and then statistics favor men. And Rob, how can you just say that? You have no facts to back up that claim. Boom! Yes, I do. So this is from humankinetics.com if you want to go to the site and read the full article. Right? It says several physical characteristics of post-pubescent males predispose them to outperform females in sports that require strength, power, and speed. Now, most people base their argument on that alone. And with just that, you really can't fully formulate an opinion until you know what the IOC, what the NCAA, and all the other sports governing bodies out there are requiring to allow transgenders to compete. So it's one of those things where you can't just say, well, men are bigger, stronger, faster, so therefore they have an unfair advantage. And as of right now, this moment, yes, that is true. But as I said, there are other things that we're going to get into that may sway your opinion a little and let you see that maybe they are trying to have some fairness so there can be inclusion. And so this one here too, now talking about overall muscle mass and less body fat. Well, adult males have overall more muscle mass and less body fat than females, even in trained samples. So male athletes average 4% to 12% of body fat as compared to 12% to 23% in female athletes. And that can have a huge advantage depending on the sport. See, because that's the other thing we have to look at here too is what sports are we talking about? We talking about ping pong? We talking about volleyball? We talking about, baseball, football, wrestling, field hockey? So, track and field, I don't know if I said that already, but there are some sports where a bigger, larger male will absolutely have a physical advantage over a female. But we've seen in sports like tennis, it's like, yeah, power does matter in tennis as well. But we have seen women beat men because that's more of a skill sport. Like I had mentioned with ping pong, that's more of a skilled timing type of sport versus physical power. But just as someone in the comments mentioned about the Connecticut transgender athlete in track and field that completely obliterated the record books in Connecticut. So this was a male who identifies as a female. And since 2017, this person and another trans athlete have broken 15 state championships, like 15. And so now when talking about inclusion, we also have to talk about fairness, because having the male attributes, regardless of what you identify as, you're presenting with male attributes. And when you're going up against biological girls and women, it's in that regard, in that particular sport, it's really not fair. It's just not. So let me go to this other one here too. So now this is a study that was done by the IOC, and this shows world records. And it does, I believe they did track and field, they did cycling, they did swimming, they did a few others, and they see that in the 800-meter freestyle swimming, that men's performances are 5.5% higher than females, 18.8% in the long jump, and the gap is 10.7% for running performances, 17.5% for jumps, 8.9% for swimming, 7.0% for speed skating, and 8.7% in cycling. So in summarizing, the results suggest that women will not run, jump, swim, or ride as fast as men. And for those that want to see the full article of where that came from, if you don't think it's just me, I'm going to put it in the comments section. So if you would like to read that full article. And again, see, and nothing about that is transphobic. Nothing about that is hateful. It's just saying that men and women are built differently. So when one transitions over, so it would be less problematic for a female transitioning to a male to play in men's sports, because they're not going in with an advantage. Whereas if you're an adult male, like we'll get to the New Zealand weightlifter in a minute, but a fully grown man, fully grown, full skeleton, full array of testosterone flowing through his body, and was winning powerlifting competitions as a male, now transitions to female. And again, and most people stop right there and say, nope, it's not fair. But this person has been away from lifting for 10 years and has undertaken hormone therapy in accordance with the IOC's policies. And I have that somewhere. I have that right here. All right, let me hit the screen share again, so the fact checkers don't come after me. All right, want this one, share. All right, that's here. So all right, so the IOC cleared the way for transgender athletes to compete in Olympic women's events without gender reassignment surgery in 2015, provided their testosterone levels stayed below 10 nanomoles. I don't know what a nanomole is, so you can Google it if you need to, per liter for at least 12 months. So there are standards, and they're testing this. So is the test perfect? No, because right now it's still new-ish. There's a small sample size, and let me get me back up here. Right, there's a small sample size, so it's ongoing testing. So for the people who are fully against it, it's like I understand, but at the same token, trans people are humans, right? They're human beings. They have basic needs just like the rest of us. And inclusion is one of them. Being accepted is one of them. And sports has always been something that brings us together. So when it comes to recreational sports, that's for fun anyway. So that shouldn't matter. If someone's comfortable playing in that environment, even if you're playing with a bunch of bigger men, and you're a female who transitioned over, if you're comfortable playing with that group, by all means play. But when it comes to competition, now you're talking, scholarship possibilities, you're talking championship possibilities and everything else. And so that's where you have to really look at the guidelines and see, are we really doing everything that we can to accept people for who they are? And I want to share the screen again and to show you this video that was kind of heartbreaking. Which side? This side. And that's not the one I want. I want this one. Hold on. No, go to the window. Yes, this one. Okay, sorry about that. Eventually I'll get better at this. Sorry, apparently I muted myself. And so, she just wants to be. You couldn't hear any of that. Dang it! All right, let me try this again. For some reason, it muted my mic, and I don't know why it did that. Because I didn't do it. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna play, because anytime I play something. No, that's not true, because I played stuff on here before. Hold on, let me try that again, because I would really like for you to hear that part.
My kid is just a kid. She wants to go to school, have fun with her friends, and play sports just like anybody else.
Sports are something that I really like doing. I'm so much more than trans. That doesn't make me less of a girl. It doesn't make me less of a human either. I'm just me.
See, I was saying, I love that at the end, how she says, "I'm just me." And again, like, that's all she wants. She just wants sports so she can be a part of something, and that her being trans, like, that's just not who she is. I should say that's not all she is. All right, so Jennifer, I'm gonna send you the link so you can come on. So you guys, bear with me 1 second. Because it's so much better when I have someone else to talk to, and I'm not just sharing my voice. All right, I'm gonna send you the link right now. See, and Jen is a member of the LGBTQ community. She was one of my trainers for a long time. Where'd you go? I'm sending it to you on Messenger. Okay, sent. And then when you're ready, just pop on and we will have the discussion. All right, so for those of you just tuning in, so I had read some stats that the IOC, the NCAA, and all the other governing bodies, they have steps in place with hormone therapy, the length of time that you have to have your testosterone levels between a certain range. And, they're doing what they can to make sure that there aren't these major gaps in performance. Because, like I was saying, with weightlifting, biological men are showing a 36.8% performance difference versus female weightlifters. So like, that's, 36.8%, that's huge. Like I said earlier, in swimming, it was 5.5. Like, that's a it's a much smaller gap. But I know in swimming and track and field, you're dealing with hundredths of a second. So that 5.5% is still pretty significant. But in weightlifting, we'll see how it shapes out, because I believe weightlifting started today, because I saw a couple reports, but I was hoping to get some of her stats from her first round of lifting, but that hasn't happened yet. All right, looks like Jennifer is on, so let's bring her in.
Hi.
Good morning, Comstock.
What's going on? I'm so excited.
How the hell are you?
I'm wonderful.
All right, so you've been listening this whole time. What are your thoughts on this topic?
I was really excited just to see the post yesterday, and it inspired a 3-hour conversation with my younger sister and her boyfriend. And there's a nice generational gap there to show, like, different levels. She was much more intense about it than her boyfriend and I. But yeah, I like to bring a different perspective, because I know, like you were saying, there's going to be transphobia and all this stuff. And I feel like a lot of this irateness does come from a more personal perspective than the science of it. And I'm no elite athlete, but I have experience within the exercise community and the fitness community, as well as being very pro LGBT, obviously.
Obviously.
Rainbow's not on purpose, by the way. It's just how I dress.
Nice. Yeah, so do you feel, like I was saying, when it's youth sports, like the disparity really isn't that big of a difference? Like, there was a time where my sister Regina used to beat me in a sprint. when we were growing
exactly.
up. Yeah, it's just like really once you hit puberty, and then once I grew to 6'2" and she stayed at 5'3", things took a turn there performance wise. But I think youth is fine. But I think that as long as there's systems in place to where you don't have situations like in Connecticut where two biological boys who transitioned over dominated the Connecticut track and field scene. Like, that's not fair to those young girls who train their tails off for that moment to have two biological boys take it away. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I 100% agree. Once you're in that elementary school, there's a difference because the testosterone and different muscle building or the physiological difference isn't there yet. Yeah. Once you get to a point where you're in the more elite categories, is going towards the college scholarships and you're at the Olympic level, that's where it matters the most, because those small little differences, even after somebody's been on hormone treatments for 2 years, the gap is smaller, but it's still a gap. And then that creates the difference. And I think that for right now, it doesn't make any sense for that to be like allowed right now. I think down the line, there's going to be much more progression and a difference, because there's also not as many transgender people competing or openly competing for there to be like a third category, because once they are on hormones, then they're at a much more disadvantage against the cis males and still have that advantage over cis females. And there should be a third category for people that have that middle ground and they are competing against each other. And then maybe over time we'll learn more about everything. But people get caught up in the future and like, this should be this way and this should be this way. But we're just talking about right now with the information, the facts that we have for right now.
Yes. Yeah. And one of the articles that I put the clips up from, it pretty much said that, because in order for this to be a thing, there has to be enough science, and the only way you can get the science is to integrate the two. It's the only way, because to see, like, how else can you see if a transition male has a major advantage over a female after being on hormone treatments for 12 months, like the IOC has in their guidelines, until you do it. That's what I said with this with the weightlifting there, Laurel Hubbard. Let's see how it works. If she beats everyone by 200 pounds, then we're gonna see maybe that's not cool. But if it's actually tight, or if someone actually beats her, then that
it's
just
something
opens
to
up
look
a whole
at
other
too,
door.
For sure. And it's also hard to tell just from one person. You can't really get a good thing. I don't know if you saw the article a while back that the Air Force did a test between like the highest caste of people, and they did transgender versus like cis, and the difference was a significant amount until they were on treatments for 2 years. And then after that, the gap closed by a lot. It was still there, but it was definitely a much closer gap once the 2-year mark hit, not even after one.
Yeah.
At that point.
And looking at
and that's just one study.
Yeah. See, it's like in looking at world-class athletes, I mean, I think that's completely different than looking at youth and recreational. I mean, I think that's less really of an argument there. But when you're talking world-class, we'll take the Olympics. There has never, ever, 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 since the beginning of the Olympics, has a men's world record been equaled by a female. Not one.
Exactly.
So when you're on that level, and that's in all the sports, like you can pick one. It's in all of them.
Absolutely, every single one that exists.
Yeah,
it's a huge gap.
Yeah, so I think people base their opinions on that. Like, and I'm not talking about the political side of it. I'm not talking about the morality side of it, because I could care less. I'm talking about the rationality of it. And so I didn't even know that there were so many standards in place until I started reading into it. And so like that was why I posted that yesterday, because I was curious to get people's initial reactions. And that's just like, even now comments are still popping up with the hard no. And it's like, but what are you basing that stance on? Because like my first show was on critical race theory, and I actually had a couple panelists come on for that one. and one of the people, they were against it, and they're making their argument. I was like, do you even know what's being taught in schools? He's like, oh well, I don't have kids, so no. I was like, then how can you take a stand? Said, have you been to your local school? Do you know what they're teaching in that local school? Not what you see on CNN and Fox News. Do you know what they're teaching? Well, no. Like, then how can you take a stance? And I feel like this issue is the same. You know, well, I should say topic, not issue. Like, but this topic is the same. That people just say no, they shouldn't, and that's just it. But it's like you don't even know what the standards are. And so once I looked into that, I said, oh, okay, so they got to be on hormone treatments for 12 months, and you know, they got to have a certain level of testosterone. Maybe that'll work. But like you said, there's not a big enough sample size yet to know if it works.
And if you, something else we were talking about is it's not just the hormone levels. While it does give you an advantage, obviously, otherwise athletes wouldn't be taking testosterone. There's also just a difference in your muscular build, and the hormones that you take aren't going to change like your height and your muscle build just on that stance. Yeah. It's going to change other things, but not those basic.
And also physically, men have a larger chest cavity. We have bigger hearts. We have bigger lungs. You know, because like when you're doing sports, how your body processes oxygen plays a huge role into your aerobic and anaerobic capacity. You know, so that has to be taken into consideration too. But if you just look at the obvious, if you took LeBron James and dropped him in the WNBA, he would average 80 points a game. Like none of them women would be able to stop him. He's 6'8", 6'9", 260 pounds of solid muscle. You know, so if you're looking at something like that, I could see. But again, with the youth and with the recreation, said there's really no argument there. But I think from like high school sports, because again, like people's lives can change over athletic performance. You know, like I saw an interview with the young woman that got beat by the trans athlete in track and field. And she was distraught. She's like, you know, I worked my whole life. I went to camps. You know, my parents got me trainers. I did everything I could to end up getting beat by a boy. She's like, how was that fair to me? And
absolutely,
she's not wrong.
Because it wasn't a close call. It wasn't something where she could have been like, oh, if I had just done this a little differently, you know, it was, you know, 15-second difference. It was minutes. And there's no, like, the problem is once you're at that level, the difference is so small to be you win versus she wins. But when you make that huge gap because of that, that's an issue. That just shows that there is an advantage, disadvantage. I know we're focusing on this.
Yeah.
And nobody focuses on the other half of it, but I think you said we'll get to that later as well.
Yeah. Which other half were you referring to?
Referring to female transitioning to male and competing.
Yeah. Let me just jot that down. Yeah, see, and if you look at it too, for using track and field as an example, women's world record standards are on high school boys level. So you're talking the most elite female, like Florence Griffith Joyner. Her Olympic record just got broken a couple days ago by the Jamaican sprinter, 10.61. Like the best high school boys in the nation are running sub 10. High school boys.
Yep.
You know, so you're talking world class, like all world female athletes are on a high school boy level. You know, so that in itself just shows the difference.
Something people need to take a look at for sure.
Yes, you know.
And that's why I say, like, it matters once you get to that level. Like you were saying, not just youth sports, but it's recreational, like an everyday thing. It's not as intense of a matter versus once you get to that high level. And that's what we're discussing right now versus like everything else where people are getting riled up. We're just, you know, focusing on this high level elite and you just can't. That's where it really has a greater impact towards people who are cis female.
Yeah, and even take sports like boxing and wrestling, like they match people up by weight class. And why do they do that? Because someone who's 220 is going to have an advantage over someone who's 150. So like that's
We
why
talked about that yesterday too.
Yeah. So that's why you have the lightweight division, and then the bantamweight, and then heavyweight, and then the super heavyweight. You're even with fit ranks. Remember with fit ranks, we had different standards. The men had to do X amount, the women had to do X amount based on your size. So that way, someone like Lynn Sexton, who can deadlift 300 pounds, she shouldn't be in the same class as someone like Chelsea, who barely weighs 100. So and there you're talking the same gender, same gender, but different size, different build, can lead to a disadvantage. So you have to adjust the standards.
Even different ages. That's why they have the Senior Olympics.
That's right.
Because there's different. My grandfather was in them. I think he still has a record.
Nice.
So there is even just the age difference, and that's what we used to do with fit ranks as well. So
and having these discussions doesn't make anything transphobic. It's like who said anything? I've been talking about this for how long? For 31 minutes now. Not one hateful thing has come out of my mouth.
Nope.
So like that has absolutely nothing to do with it. And so talking about it going the other way, now like I have played pickup basketball games where girls and women have jumped in the game. And there are times where, because sometimes the guys get really, really physical. And you're talking, like I said, I'm 6'2", 185. There's other people 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 180, 200, 220 pounds. And then here comes this 140-pound 5'5" woman. Just from a sheer physicality standpoint, we make it a point to make sure we don't rough her up the way we rough each other up. And then some people don't like that. Oh, girls can be tough. I mean, I'm talking size. If I'm flying down on a fast break and she's in front of me, I'm not going to try to run through her like I would the 200-pound person.
Exactly.
Like that's just physics. Like that's not going to end well for her.
And that's what I say, because I mean, I'm pro lady. We can be very strong people, and women can beat out some men, but if you're going strongest man in the world versus strongest woman in the world, the man wins out every time, barring no like injuries or whatever.
Yes.
Just like the fastest man and the fastest woman, huge difference. I think in the marathon, there's a 14-minute gap from the fastest male to the fastest female, around 14-minute gap. That's huge.
Wow.
That's huge.
Yeah, it is. Oh my God. Yeah, and like I said, it's just one of those things where when people take out the emotion and actually just simply look at the facts, you just look at the facts. It's really not that controversial of a topic, but the question is, are you really looking further into what these sports organizations are doing? Because like what they did in Connecticut, they decided that their law allowing transgenders to compete with what they identify as, that it violates Title IX because you're putting biological girls at a disadvantage. So but now there's a lawsuit about that because it's almost like you got to rob Peter to pay Paul. It's kind of like this whole anti-racism thing now. So it's like the only way to fix discrimination is with more discrimination. It's like, that's not how that works. How about we just love and accept each other and we're all good?
Yeah. I mean, you were saying like people going up against the different genders. When I was in middle school, all of our races, even in the Junior Olympics, it was combined. The boys and the girls raced together.
Yeah.
Some of them they would separate, but if you missed your race, they're like, okay, go race with the boys. Too bad. Yeah. And that's just how it went.
Yeah, it's true. So just the thing is now, as they're going through these protocols, to test so they can have a standard for it, there are some biological women that might get, I don't want to use the word cheated out, but they could have opportunities taken away as they're trying to figure out, okay, well, will this standard work? And then they end up getting blown out, but that's going to be a blown opportunity for her. So yes. It's like yes, we want to include everyone, but it has to be fair. Like that's why there's men's and women's divisions now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
it's
not a bad thing. It's not a separatist thing. Like back in the day when they had the Negro Baseball League, that was different. It's like because they wouldn't let us play with everyone. Like that's hateful. That's separatist. Like with this, it's like trying to figure out the best way to integrate them so that way it's fair for everyone.
Exactly. And there's no possible way to make it fair for everyone right now, because it's hard to say this person who's trained their entire life, it can be denied the opportunity to compete.
Yep.
But it's also at the same time, you're taking away opportunities from other people who have it. And what's the greater good versus one or the other? And it's not about excluding. It's not about saying you can't compete because you're transgender and we don't like that. It's about you can't compete because you're not in the same category. So same thing like you were talking about the weight classes. If a super weight class, what is it, heavy weight class decides to say, oh, but I want to compete in the featherweight, they can't because it's not the same. It's not the same. Yeah. It's just different. So it's not a fair competition at that point.
Yes. Yeah, agreed. And I think all eyes are going to be on this Laurel Hubbard from New Zealand, because that's really the first open transgender athlete competing in the Olympics. So all eyes are gonna be watching there to see. And for people who are just tuning in, so she's a weightlifter out of New Zealand, transitioned when she was 35. So that was 8 years ago. She's 43 now. But she's been away from lifting for the last 10 years and has been on hormone therapy, and her levels are below the IOC standard for testosterone. So the only way to really find out if that shrinks it down, because typically biological men have a 36.8% strength advantage in weightlifting over biological females. So after her performances, they'll have a better sample size to see if they need to tweak those standards. So I don't think it's so much like they shouldn't. It's like, how can we?
Yes, exactly. And that's the other thing that I should start writing stuff down. I'm not used to being live, but that is one thing. It's not a how shouldn't, who shouldn't. It's like, how can we get there? Yes. But that's not something that's feasible right this second. It's something that's future based.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the whole race thing, look at how long it took to integrate the cultures post-slavery. It took a long time. Like, schools were integrated the year I was born. It's like that. That's how recent it was. It was in 1974 was when the last schools were integrated. I was like I was a baby then. It was like on the surface, like, oh, that was so long ago. I was like, that was in my lifetime that it happened. So it might take a lot more time for this to be fully worked out, so people can just be who they are. And like I said, you could take, because like whenever people bring up morality, I always say, I'm pretty certain that the Bible also says, thou shalt not judge. So that's not up for you.
Bring that up all the time.
Right? It's like, that's not up to you to pick and choose, when you want to abide by the Bible. Like, that's not up to you. And so
that's a whole other rant for another day.
Yeah. So it's like, that has nothing to do with it. And if you personally don't agree with it, you don't have to. There are some people who love onions. I despise onions. We can both be friends. So, all right. So that's about all I got on this one. You want to mention anything else?
I don't know. Are there any more comments or questions on it? I guess.
Nothing new popped in.
Okay. I just love that you did this to start, and I want to say thank you for it and keeping it completely scientific with all of it. It's just a very good thing to see.
My pleasure. Well, because again, just being a person of color, I deal with my fair share of nonsense too. Like I posted something on my Twitter today saying what a backward world we live in, where by saying you are considered anti-Black if you say that Blacks can do for themselves, and you are pro-Black by begging whites for acceptance in government handouts. Like I did a video just about being successful, having passion, having a goal, vision, and I got told I was promoting white supremacy. I can't even say it with a straight face. I was like, telling people of color that they can be whatever they want to be is somehow promoting white supremacy.
Yes, that's exactly what you're doing.
That's so stupid.
So. You see it a lot with like the feminism, and I don't consider myself a feminist because I don't agree with like that generalized version of it, but it's different for everybody, and you should be able to say, like, not anti-lady, but I don't want to be associated with the aggression that comes with feminism.
Yep. I am only one ist. I am a humanist. That's
That's
it.
great.
If you are a human being, I care about you. I will do what I can to love and inspire you. That's it. It doesn't. I don't care who you sleep with, what color your hair is, what God you pray to. None of that stuff matters. We're all human beings. You can love who you want to love. You can be whatever you want to be, and that's just it. It's that simple. You know, it really is. I posted something again that said, "I'll teach my babies to love your babies." That's all you got to do. That's
I
it.
remember that.
We can end all hate on this planet if you just teach your babies to love the neighbor's babies. Done. You know, but there's no money in that. So
No, there is not.
Oh, I touched Mary's soul. She liked my humanist.
Hi,
comment.
Mary.
All right, Jennifer. Thank you very much for coming on live. I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So you have yourself a great day, and I'll see you soon. All right, bye. And thanks everyone else for tuning in. And cue the out.